Abundance is the capacity to do what needs to be done when it needs to be done. You've probably heard things like, money brings happiness, and, the rich enter the kingdom of heaven. Yet what do these things really mean? This will clarify the biggest doubts and the apparent contradictions when the subject is financial abundance. You'll definitively understand the essence of the state of abundance, the logic behind the idea of being in order to have, why some negative and even malicious people manage to accumulate fortunes without doing this inner work and without following this logic. The difference between forcing results and attracting results. Creating through energy versus forcing through matter. And mainly how you can exit scarcity and discover abundance in a practical way. Quick update for those following the research: our Patreon library has reached a new level. I've been moving all the high-frequency studies there that simply don't fit the YouTube format. If you want the full archive, the link is in the pinned comment. The world we see, our circumstances, is actually a perceived world, because it's limited by your perception. There exists what you perceive and what you perceive. When we expand our consciousness, we expand our perception. We begin to see, we begin to perceive things we saw before, because we had a perception, a very limited vision. When we talk about abundance of resources, prosperity, this has everything to do with our level of consciousness. Our degree of abundance is proportional to our level of consciousness. Because abundance, like all things, has to do with our perception. The more abundant you are, the more abundance you perceive in your world, the greater your perceived abundance. Scarcity is nothing more than an extremely limited perception that allows you to see the abundance around you. There's a distortion of your worldview, a limitation that allows you to see abundance, allows you to access abundance, and makes you frequently sabotage this abundance every time it comes to you. The first point to be clarified when we seek abundance, when we seek to develop this prosperity mentality, is understanding what this is. We need to know exactly what we're seeking to avoid falling into the trap of looking for the wrong thing in the wrong place. Abundance is not a number in your bank account. It's much beyond that. It's a state of spirit. It's a state of completeness and confidence where there is lack, where there is fear of loss, where there is fear of scarcity, where you're completely satisfied. All your needs are met and you feel any lack. It's a state of completeness, gratitude, and satisfaction. In these circumstances, material resources, the external, they simply become a reflection of who you are, a reflection of this your inner state. This is true abundance, this state, this frequency you should seek. The big question is that the vision of abundance of our ego is limited to material resources. The ego sees everything in terms of matter, in terms of material resources. The question is that these resources normally are a reflection of your inner state. Many times the change of these external resources will necessarily generate a change in your internal state. For example, there are several people living in states of scarcity even with incomes well above average, even having an abundance of material resources. They live in a state of scarcity because even having many things, they perceive majorly what they have. This is an exclusivity of people who are very lacking in material resources. You'll find people living in scarcity in the most diverse income ranges. I think most of us know this. Most of us perhaps even know a person who has a super abundant life, who has many material resources, who has an income well above average, yet who lives worried about money, who lives saying they have enough money, that they need more. We tend to normalize this, saying it's normal for human beings, because the human being always wants more. In reality, although this is common, it's normal, it's of our innermost nature. It may be a condition of the nature of our ego, yet in higher levels of consciousness, as you disidentify with the ego, this is true. Your satisfaction, your level of satisfaction, it increases. Therefore, it's very important you understand that real abundance is what comes from within to without, what manifests from within to without. It's that state I described. If you imagine yourself in this state of completeness, if you close your eyes and imagine yourself in a state where you feel lack of absolutely nothing, where you can do what needs to be done when it needs to be done, where you can have everything you need, all your needs met, 100% satisfaction. When you place yourself in this state and ask yourself, what would I do, how would I be, one of the first things that will come to your mind, if you really place yourself there, is the question of giving. If you have fear of loss and you have perception of scarcity, you care really about sharing something you have with another person, about giving things you perceive to be in excess to other people. True abundance always overflows to other people, and it walks side by side with genuine generosity. True abundance brings this capacity to be generous without any reservation, without any fear, without any fear. You can be truly generous. The external number, possessions, this is a determining factor. There is a value that when you have this value in your bank account, you'll feel abundant. Our ego believes there is this value, yet the way you feel internally depends on anything external. I'm saying these things for you to think that abundance is being content with little. It may seem like that, yet it has absolutely nothing to do with that. I just want to emphasize here the importance of you being before you wanting to have, for you to avoid falling into traps of the world. Because whenever we seek money as a band-aid for a problem that is material, a problem that is spiritual, we tend very much to fall into certain traps. Exiting scarcity to abundance means exiting the idea of having, to doing, to being. So I want to have things to do this, to then be happy, and go to another paradigm which is being, doing, having. I am abundant and happy, therefore I do what I do and I have as a consequence, I have what I have. In more limited levels of consciousness, our focus is very much on having. You want to have things and everything you do is seeking uniquely and exclusively to have certain things. Whether for you to fill an emotional hole, whether for you to show off, whether for you to prove something to someone. You become an accumulating and greedy person. It matters how much you have in excess, you cannot recognize that. One of the consequences of this for many people is debt, which is the biggest self-sabotage people make in their own lives to become abundant. This happens because people focus on the effect and understand what are the causes behind that effect. You want to reach that effect, which are material things, material resources, yet you know how to produce the correct causes. You try to reach those effects producing mistaken causes, producing causes that are adequate, yet that are the only ones you can perceive within that your limited level of consciousness. Many times people end up running after getting that, using mistaken forms that instead of helping their life go forward, end up delaying their life even more and placing these people in situations of scarcity increasingly extreme. In genuine abundance, the resource comes as a consequence of who you are. Having, things, possessions, they are a mere consequence. They are the main objective. Now, if it works like this, how do there exist people with precarious levels of consciousness, malicious people, unscrupulous people, negative people who manage to accumulate fortunes, manage to have and live in an abundance of material resources? The question here, there are two forms of you operating in the world, two forms of you living in the world and reaching objectives and reaching financial prosperity. You can use power, which is spiritual, which is this path we're talking about here now, creating through energy. Or you can use force, which is material, you force your results in the world. The question is that when you have to force results in the world, the result is more delayed, takes much more effort, takes much more time for things to happen. People who are extremely greedy have this patience. They'll force their results in the world within the material paradigm, doing absolutely anything to get the result they desire, whether legal things or, whether moral things or. As they feel guilt, they can receive money without problems. One of the biggest blocks for people, mainly good people, is the feeling of guilt. Guilt blocks the entry of money and the flow of money in your life. The more guilt you have, less money you can attract. These people who are unscrupulous feel any guilt. They have any resistance to the entry of money. You add this to the fact that they're willing to do anything and they feel any guilt, it's obvious they'll manage to reach the resources they want. Does this mean these people are genuinely abundant? In any way. They live this internal state of abundance I described. You can be sure that the feeling of peace, of satisfaction accompanies this type of person. The proof of this is greed. If you, for example, take people who get rich in illicit form, people who act in corruption schemes, people who do money laundering, scams, fraud, if you observe, these people are never satisfied with what they have. They'll do this just once. They achieve this feeling of internal satisfaction. That's why whenever they have opportunity to give new scams, to steal a bit more, they'll do it again, because they're never satisfied. They're bottomless sacks because they're seeking a thing that is material, a thing that is spiritual in material resources. As this will never satisfy their real need, they'll always need more. It's extremely difficult to reverse this state. That's why we have in that biblical passage where it said it's easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than for the rich to enter the kingdom of heaven. This rich person of this passage refers precisely to this type of person who thinks material resources will bring a satisfaction that has nothing to do with material things. It's not about any rich person, it's about rich people who are not truly abundant and generous. It's about greedy people who have attachment to matter, who think it's material resources that bring happiness and satisfaction. The meaning of this passage is the following: if you discover on your own that genuine happiness, that the state of abundance, of completeness, of satisfaction, and of love resides within you, if you achieve this state doing inner work, you'll fall into the trap of the world that tells you happiness is in having material things. You'll start to pursue these things instead of pursuing your spiritual evolution. You become this person who is never satisfied with what they have, who wants always more and who keeps committing themselves more and more to get more and more. The more material resources you have, the more you'll seek material pleasures, material experiences, things to fill an internal hole. You'll do this more and more. This is because the more resources you have, the more access to these things you have. Yet this is a bottomless hole because you're looking for a satisfaction that is spiritual, yet you're trying to get it through material resources. What happens is that this keeps escalating and you need increasingly more. You need more possessions, you need more experiences, more pleasure, more substances, more this, more that, more. It keeps escalating until reaching levels where people start doing bizarre and unbelievable things because they no longer have what to do, they no longer have what to experience. As this keeps happening, the person keeps anchoring themselves more and more in the material, in matter, and distancing themselves from their spiritual truth. We're tired of seeing this happen, for example, in the world of celebrities. Notice that the abundance I described at the beginning comes from the spiritual evolution of a being. It's very different from this greed we see in the world. If you stop to reflect on everything we've seen now, you'll realize that the importance of you first being internally a happy, abundant, and peaceful person to only then have is like a spiritual shield. It's the safe form of you prospering and evolving in the world without getting lost in the world, without accumulating karma, without compromising your integrity, without compromising your peace of spirit. It's being in the world yet being of the world, prospering without getting lost. When you get there, in this definitive and genuine state of abundance, it happens that you need to prove anything to anyone. As I said, there is a number X that will determine this. Each person knows what they need and what satisfies them. You'll need to accumulate more and more. Everything depends on your purpose, your objective. Whenever you need to do something, you'll have the resources for that. The truly abundant person needs increasingly more simply because they know how to create. If you have the formula for gold, you need to keep carrying a heavy sack of gold here and there. I understand there's a very big block for many people. Sometimes it's even unconscious, yet when we observe the relationship between spirituality and prosperity, spirituality and abundance of material resources. Many people have this block, sometimes even unconscious, that for you to be spiritualized, for you to evolve and prosper spiritually, you cannot have ambition, you cannot have material prosperity, you cannot have abundance of material resources. This is because we see many people, many saints who make vows of poverty. Yet why do they do this? Because it's what I said, if you have the formula to make gold, you need to keep carrying a sack of gold. They give up these things because they already mastered them. One thing excludes the other. The more you focus on your spiritual development, on your evolution as a person and on your expansion of consciousness, the better your relationship with money will be, the better your enjoyment and your experience with money and with material resources will be, only for you, yet for people around you who will benefit from your consciousness, your wisdom, and your abundance. It's important that increasingly more good people use this formula of being to have and reach abundant states and reach states of prosperity, because what we've seen in recent times is that resources have been in the hands of those people who do the inverse path, those people who get lost and who become corrupt. The result of this is good. The more good and conscious people have material resources, the better, because in the hands of these people, resources serve a greater good. Money is neutral, it only potentiates what already exists within you. I post much more frequently on Patreon to help keep this alignment consistent. You'll also find my latest ebook there, which covers this process in much more detail. If you don't want to miss what's happening outside the channel, check the pinned link. Now, speaking in a practical form, how can you exit the state of scarcity and go to the state of abundance? The first step is you learning to concentrate your perception, your focus on the resources you have available here and now. The biggest error of people who live in states of scarcity is that they're always focusing and looking at what they have. They recognize what they have here and now and they always focus on what they have. The more you focus on what you have, the more things you have will appear. This simple change of perception, this simple change in your intention, in your consciousness, in the present moment, already completely changes your experience. The second step has everything to do with you controlling your senses. As we've already talked about, desire means I want this because I have this. Observing your superficial desires in day-to-day, learning to moderate and control your senses. This self-awareness, you starting to pay attention whenever a desire for day-to-day things arises, will make you realize that in reality, what you want is that object, is that thing, yet the feeling, the emotion you attributed to having that thing. From the moment you understand that deep down what you want is a state of spirit, a feeling, external things will become less and less appealing and you can control more and more your impulses. You'll start to recognize that in reality you even want that much a certain thing. You'll start to stop wanting to attend to each desire and each impulse. This self-awareness, this self-control makes you gradually exit this idea of having and enter the idea of being. You'll worry more and more about being a complete person internally, and then a much more elevated purpose arises. All the resources you need to fulfill this purpose arrive to you. Even those superficial things that before you wanted so much and now you even give that much attention, these things also start to arrive to you easily and spontaneously. The third critical point is training the feeling of abundance. This practice works in the following manner. Imagine. Place yourself in a place where 100% of your needs are met, where you can do what needs to be done when it needs to be done, where you can have absolutely everything you want, where there is any feeling of restriction, any feeling of lack, where there is any worry about the future, where absolutely all your material needs are met and satisfied. You can perhaps imagine that you won the lottery if this helps you reach this state. Yet the idea is, place yourself in this place and try to understand what is the feeling of being in this place, what is the frequency of this place, how do I feel, what are the feelings, what is the state of spirit, the emotional state that corresponds to this place. You have to try to reach this frequency and generate this feeling within you. In the first times it may be difficult, it may be that you cannot get there, yet with time, if you insist on this training daily, at some moment you'll reach this frequency and you'll understand in a subjective form how it is to be in this place, what is the feeling, what is the frequency of this place. You'll be able to understand and feel. When you understand and feel, you'll remember forever, you'll have the memory of the emotional state that corresponds to this reality. Then your only work is daily to remember this state, to place yourself again every day in this state, whether for whatever time, half an hour, whatever you have available. The idea is to try to discover what is the frequency, what are the corresponding feelings, how do you feel when you get there, and then simply remember every day of this feeling. Obviously stay present and conscious in most of the day, the rest of the day, so you fall again into the frequency of scarcity. The most difficult is the beginning, until you can truly understand how you feel. Most people when they try to place themselves in this place at the beginning will have a bit of difficulty understanding the feelings because they cannot conceive this reality. The more distant you are from this reality, the more difficult. Yet if you insist, you get there. This is literally what ancient teachings teach. It's so simple. We ask ourselves, if it's so simple, why do most people do it? If this is so easy, wouldn't everyone be incredibly rich? Then the question of self-sabotage becomes clear. People say they want this so much, yet they cannot give themselves the work of doing this 1 hour a day, every day. So do they really want it? How much do you want? Do you want enough to take an hour of your day every day to try to seek this state in a form that will facilitate very much your progress? When we ask these questions, we arrive at the conclusion that consciously you want, yet unconsciously there is a block, there is a part of you that wants to reach this result and that sabotages you. If you feel a lot of resistance to these practices, it may be that this is exactly what you need. The only question is that you have to insist and persist until you overcome all this resistance and reach this state. This is the path to be the most effective and the most advantageous for you to reach abundance.